Today we're going to run through making some symmetrical volume lash fans. So I'm going to show you what symmetry is expected in the beginning versus what is expected later down the line. And with this today, we're going to need a glue ring, or you can definitely use the staple trick as well. I know you've already seen that within this course. So you can definitely use your staple trick or whatever glue method you want for this example, but you're gonna need a sponge of some sort. I'm actually working with foam craft paper that I got at Michael's. The reason why I like this paper is because it has a backing on it that you can actually take off and stick to the table so it's not moving around while you're working. Next thing I have placed today are 10mm 0.12 classic lashes. I suggest working with shorter lengths, 10 being, I wouldn't work with anything much longer than 10 only because we're trying to mimic the natural lash as much as possible. I am working with C-curl, but any length will do. If you have even 13mm, it's okay, it will work. But we're working with finer diameters to mimic the texture of a standard natural lash. So we're working with that. So we're gonna set them up on our sponge like I've done here. It's a fun way to practice glue control and direction as well. And I'll show you in a minute how you can create layers using this technique as well, so you can really get creative with lengths and styles and practice even without a model in front of you. I find that really helps take away some of the pressure of learning. Next thing I have are our 0.07 diameter 11mm C-curl lashes. And again, you can use any diameter or curl for this example. I'm also working with our different lash tweezers. So I'm not going to be focusing on isolation today. I do not have an isolation tweezer placed out on my station. Instead, I have two tweezers of choice for volume. So these are for fanning. I have my Grippopotamus Slim Boot tweezer here and my Grippopotamus J Curve tweezer. These are just my tweezers of choice. You can use whichever tweezers you want as long as they have a good, strong sweet spot and you feel comfortable using them. And then out I also have our Crane Grippopotamus tweezer. These are what I'm going to use to place my classic lashes on my sponge. And then I have my mascara wand. I have my bondage glue. Again, you can use any glue for this experiment as long as it is non-wicking because we are working with Handmade volume today. And then I have our empty pre-fan lash tray. So our empty pre-fan lash tray, all you have to do is take one of these little white strips off, and then you have your own tray to store your own handmade fans in so that they're ready to go for when you're actually lashing a client. You can use them almost as pre-made fans, but you've made them yourself. So it's nice to not throw your fans away and get to use them later. And it's cool too, because when I create fans like this, you'll notice that you'll start off, and no matter if you're a new artist or a seasoned artist, when you start off, the fans will be a little bit wonky, and then the more practice you put in, you'll see them getting progressively better, which is super cool. So you can put numbers along the side if you're working with all one number, curl, whatever, just use a Sharpie, and you can go ahead and write what your curl or diameter and lash lengths are, just so you know when you're ready to complete a lash set. And the cool thing about this tray too is you can practice as many times as you want. We have these replacement cards so that you can always practice. Instead of having to buy this tray over and over again, you can just replace the card inside. They are sticky, so they'll go right in there, and then you can practice again and again and again. Okay, let's dive into symmetry. So again, when we are beginning to learn about symmetry, we're really focusing on working with smaller dimensions and higher diameter lashes. This is how we are going to become a pro. We need to take baby steps and work with smaller dimensions until we are ready to move higher and higher and higher. And if you start at this spot, then before you know it, you will be making big fans that are perfectly symmetrical. Okay, I'm just gonna move this out of the way. I'm gonna be working with our Slim Boot for right now. I've already got 3 lashes laid on my foam. So I'm gonna use these and I'm gonna place some symmetrical fans. So first thing I wanna do is remove some lashes off the end of the strip. just so that I have room to fan. Okay, so I'm not gonna go into creating a fan per se. Not gonna talk about hand placement and fingers and stuff like that. I know you already have that in other areas of this course. So today we're just gonna be focusing on what a symmetrical fan looks like, and we're gonna be placing it and talk about how we can keep the fan looking symmetrical even between fills. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna create my fan. Use the point of my tweezers to fan it out. Now, this could take a while to get used to. I found in the beginning I would either use too much or too little pressure when I was fanning them out. But when you're fanning, it shouldn't take a lot of pressure. I find I like to just have control still, but just easy, controlled movements. That takes a little bit of getting used to. There is a happy medium. You will find it, just trial and error. Next thing is, my body always has to be at a perfect angle. So sometimes this means that I'll have to move my massage bed up or down, and my body from left to right. I find that helps me a lot. So this is what a 4D symmetrical lash fan looks like. So the trick to picking up a lash fan and keeping it symmetrical, just like you've made on your strip, is to make sure that the fan never hits one side of the tweezer before hitting the other. So the tweezer is going to close on the fan so that both sides of the head touch the fan at the exact same time. Because if you push towards the back, the fan's going to change. If you push toward the front, the fan's also going to change. So we want to make sure that we get that fan and close our tweezers at the exact same time so that both sides hit that fan together. Then I'm going to pick it up as if I was picking up a cup of tea without spilling, and I've got my fan. Now the trick is to dip in your glue, keeping that pressure. Pressure is so important. So you're keeping that pressure, and it's okay if the points of the fan at the base aren't quite closed just yet. But you should have enough control and enough pressure that the tips always stay the exact same, even if you go crazy and move the bottom around a ton. That's how much pressure you need. So now I'm ready to dip it in. Again, I'm going to dip vertically. And then if I want the base to be just a little more pointy, tap it along the side. Now I'm ready to come in and place the fan. So I'm looking from the side because I find that helps me so much more to make sure that that base is perfectly flush with the natural lash. And instead of pushing down on that natural lash, I'm just gonna find my spot. So I'm gonna hold and hover using my hand for stability and looking from the side, making sure that it is in fact flush with the natural lash. And I hold it in place for 6 seconds. I find that is the sweet spot that prevents my fan from closing up, keeping it perfectly symmetrical. So now let's make a fan that is perfectly symmetrical, but I'm just gonna let it go after, we'll say 2 seconds. There's so many factors that comes into hand making a fan. One, two. Okay. So I've only held that one for 2 seconds, and let's get in and take a really close look. So this fan, as you can see, it was held for 6 seconds, and the fan is nice and open. Now, if I move it around, nothing happens. It stays open. It has cured. But now, this is also a 4D fan that was symmetrical when I placed it. But as you can see, because I let go prematurely at 2 seconds, the fan has closed up. And it also moved away from the base because it was able to slide around still. There wasn't enough time for that fan to properly cure. So although we make a symmetrical fan, we pick it up, we've done as much as we can, but it's in the placement too. Now, although this fan is looking awesome and it's probably good, After every service, I find it super helpful to use Super Bonder on the lashes afterwards. That really makes sure that the glue is fully cured so that the client's lashes will always look open and fanned out like this, even when they come back for a fill. Because if a client, say, starts touching their lashes or brushes through their lashes or whatever, and right after a service with fans that haven't quite cured properly, then this could happen even though you've held it for 6 seconds between, but the glue just needed a little bit more time to cure. Sometimes clients will come back in and you're like, what the heck? I know that I did this right, but they come back looking kind of like this. That's why. So Super Bonder is a really great tool for that. But now let me show you what a fan can look like in the beginning, and that's okay. You just keep practicing and practicing and practicing. So I suggest taking your pre-fan tray now, and you're gonna actually just crystallize your fans while you're doing this, but you can go ahead and practice your fans. And then to crystallize, you're just gonna take your fingers. Remember to keep that pressure with your tweezers. You're gonna rub that glue off. Hold for 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just to make sure that when you place it on the sticky strip, that it doesn't fall apart as well. So that's my practice fan. And you can make them some wide, some narrow. Likely the first couple times that you make fans, they will look something like this. But you're just gonna wanna keep practicing, making sure that you're focusing on all of your learnings and bringing them into play. You can focus on one thing at a time. Maybe focus on fanning first. Keep doing that over and over and over again. Everything's gonna take quite some time in the beginning. You can't expect to go in and just whip out a fan really fast. In the beginning, it can take many minutes just to make one fan. You can always remove lashes that don't suit your fan along the way as well. Again, both sides of the tweezers closing at the same time. Lifting up. See how there's a little bit more of a gap between this tip and this tip? Now, just because I'm talking so much about symmetry and the importance of symmetry, it doesn't mean that this is not a usable fan. This is absolutely okay. So you don't have to throw it out. It's gonna be fine. You can for sure use that. So symmetry is important, of course, but is it the end all be all? No, we are all working towards perfection, and it is almost impossible to create perfectly symmetrical fans all the time, no matter how advanced you are. Sometimes we're gonna have to just be okay with a fan looking like that. So don't feel pressured that they always have to be perfect. And then when we work with 0.03 diameter lashes, symmetry is going to be much harder to attain. So we're not going to put too much pressure on ourselves. We'll make them as symmetrical as possible, but because they overlap so much, it's going to look lovely and dense in the end, no matter what.